Hi everyone, I am Darshan Kendrick, the founder of Darshan Speaks, where we turn growing companies into attractive companies for investors by focusing on 5 key business areas through business coaching and legal consulting. So thank you for joining me on today, which is our 4th class of our Masterclass series on capital conversations. So we're going to talk about how do you prepare to raise capital from investors. So thank you so much if you're viewing this live or you are viewing this recording. So a few things about me. I'm a 15-year plus corporate securities attorney that has helped companies nationwide raise billions of dollars in private investment capital and save them millions of dollars in unnecessary court costs and fees. And now Darshan Speaks is my coaching firm where we help companies become the most attractive that they can be to investors by coaching on 5 different areas. We coach on your foundation, your future, your financials, your framework, and your forward thinking. So we're going to go through a few of those today. So today we're going to talk about how do you prepare to raise. And really, how do you prepare to raise is set out in our 5-part session that we offer here at Darshan Speaks. So we offer the 5 F's that I just went through with you today. And so we're going to go more into detail with it. But this essentially gives you a guideline to how you prepare to raise capital. If you take care of these 5 F areas, then you are well positioned to get a yes from an investor and to become investor ready. So I have a story about $1 million tech company that was so excited for me to do the legal compliance in order to raise funds for them. And they spent all this money on this pitch deck, and they had this 15-page PowerPoint presentation, and all the founders were so excited. And after they did an hour-long presentation, unfortunately, I had to break it to them that they were only about 30% investor ready to raise capital because they didn't cover those 5 F's that I talked about: the foundation, the framework, the financials, the forward thinking, and the future. They only had a few of those. And so they were a little deflated, but we got them together and they were eventually able to go on and raise $20 million in private investment funds. So if you cover these 5 things, you should be in good shape to get a yes from your investors. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that I wanted to do is to share this screen with you. And what this is it just is a graphic of our investor ready program. So you can see this on the website. We can send it to you, but it shows you sort of the progression of how we get you investor ready. Like I said before, we start with the foundation, then we start with the framework, the financials, the forward thinking, and the future. And we go systematically in that way so that you can't get to level 4 until you're done with level 3. And so by the end of it all, you have this perfect guide to becoming investor ready that you can share with your team, that you can update as needed, and it really is a great guide. So that is that. The next thing that I wanted to share with you specifically is our coaching guide. Of course, this is the best way to go to this masterclass on how do you prepare to raise, because this is what we do. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go through this coaching guide step by step. All right, so you should be able to see the coaching guide on the screen right here. So we go through 5 sessions, as I stated before. And session number 1 is the foundation. The goal here is to assess where you are as a company so that I can tell you where you need to go, how far you need to go, give you timelines and guidance about how we get there. And we ask overall questions about your company, about what specifically your product or service is, how does it solve a problem in the marketplace, what are the benefits of it, how have you proven it in the market, who are your competitors, what makes you different, and narrow down your ideal client. And then, like normal companies, we will ask about your mission statement, help you develop your mission statement, vision statement, your verbal pitch, and your written pitch. And then specifically to talk a little bit, sort of high level, about how you meet your ideal client and how they know about your product or service. Because if you have an ideal client and they never meet your product or service, that is not how you are going to build a business, how you're going to sell products or services. So you have to get your ideal client to actually know about your product or service, and so we help you high level with the marketing with that. So that's in session 1. In session 2, we talk about the framework. So it's like building a house. So we got the foundation, right, which is the granite slab. Now we're building up the framework. We're putting in the beams and the wood in order to build the framework for this company that is going to raise capital. So our goal is to put in place the necessary people, partners, processes, and paperwork for you to have a successful raise and beyond. So it's just not about staying where you are, but making sure that you have a solid foundation and a solid framework. Remember, we're building a house in order to go for it after you have finished your raise. So we go over the people, we go over the partners, we go over your processes, we go over your pitch deck, and we go over any paperwork that you may need. So you see there's an extra P in there for your pitch deck, but we go over all the paperwork that you need. And you go through it systematically to make sure that you have those in place. This is probably one of the most important aspects of it, because if we don't have the framework solidified and we don't have the beams in place to hold up the rest of what we're trying to do, it really all crumbles. So we take some time and we go through this framework session with you. On our third session, now we're really getting to know each other. We go over your finances. So you might think, oh, we'll go over the finances first. Until we get a solid foundation and framework, the finances are going to rest on the foundation and on the framework. Okay, and so one of the things that we are making sure that we do here is get your finances in order. So if you do not have your finances in order, of course, you're not going to be able to raise that capital that you need, because we need to have all your financial documents in place before we start to raise capital. So you'll see here that we go over all your documents that you need for this. So we do a breakdown of expenses, costs, and fees. We start on the conservative end and we go over to the more liberal end, just so we can have sort of a range of things that we want to take a look at. And then you keep going down here. And if you keep going down here, we'll talk about what is the total amount that you need to raise between the liberal estimate and the conservative estimate. We're going to go with the liberal estimate because I'd rather you raise too much as opposed to raise too little and have to do all this again. We'll talk about deadlines, how much equity you want to give up for your company, because you will have to give up some equity. You're raising from investors. So we'll walk you through what all this means, what are the pros and cons, based on how much equity you may have already given away, which is a good and comfortable and reliable, sustainable number that you can offer to investors. So that's our purpose, is to guide you through all of that. All right, then next we go through actually a timeline. So obviously we need a timeline in order to be able to systematically plan out how much money we want to raise by when. So we don't want to say you just want to raise $1 million. We want to break that up into obtainable benchmarks and goals and things that we can sort of measure our progress, because we don't want to get to the end of the year and say, oh, well, we didn't raise $1 million. We need to do check-ins and benchmarks along the way to make sure that we're on the right path. And then we talk about your financing strategy, which is really something I'm very excited about, because this is what I've been doing for the last 15 years as a corporate securities attorney. And so we will go over how you want to raise this capital the legal way, what exemption under the Securities and Exchange Act you're going to be able to raise this money. We're going to get you a valuation, and then we're going to talk about the 4 horsemen, or the 4 financial documents that you need: cash flow statement, use of funds, P&L statement, and shareholders' equity. So we'll talk about what those different documents mean, and we'll help you to connect with somebody to put those together. We can help along the way, but you really need some financial experts to put those documents together. And depending on what your financing strategy is, you might even need those to be audited. So we'll talk about all that during our coaching session. Our fourth session is forward thinking. So we work to develop a plan to scale your business in such a way in a time period that investors want to invest in your company. So the first three sessions that we did really lead up to this, which is to give the investor the reason or reasons to invest with you. And one of those reasons is going to be they're going to make their money back 2 or 3 times over, and they're going to make it back in a good time period. So we need to figure out, how do we do that? Because we want investors to see that we are diligent with their money, that they'll get a return on investment, and that we'll be able to scale this business. So we go through, how are we going to scale this business to return the money back to the investors at such a return and in such a way that they cannot say no to you. So, well, I guess they could say no, but the point is that we're going to get you as close to being investor ready as possible, so you have the best chances of them saying yes, making you the most attractive company that you can be. So we go through this document, and again, we're talking about objectives and benchmarks within the company, and I put it down here for 6 companies. We can extend this out to 10 years. We can shorten it to 4 or 5 years, although that is pushing it. But we really delve into how we are going to systematically, year by year, grow the business exponentially, so that the investors see that you're scaling their money. And then the last session, but certainly not the least, is the future. So one of the things that I am intentional about is not dropping off clients after they've raised the funds and filed the paperwork and got the money from the investors and just disappear. I really want you to be a sustainable company that has good investor relations with your investors, because believe me, being a FINRA arbitrator, I have seen what gets companies into trouble with their investors, and I try to give you the best practices and ways to avoid all of that. So the goal is to implement those best practices for dealing with investors and with the issues after the raise and as your company grows. So it really is meant to be a vitamin as you go forward, as opposed to a pill once you get into trouble. It's really meant to be a preventative breathing document that you can vary at any time, but it gives you some guidelines about how to handle the after. So this is an example of a graphic that you can put into your pitch deck about how you communicate. If you have a communication promise with your investors, then you can use this as a model, or change it in any way that you see fit. And then this really gets into the written policy of who communicates with investors, how you communicate with it, how you communicate with stakeholders, how you communicate with employees and vendors, how you communicate with founders when issues arise. There needs to be a written policy for that, because I assure you that things are not going to go 100% your way. And so what you want to do is have a written policy in place, so that after you have raised funds from investors, you're not scrambling at the same time a crisis comes up to come up with a process. You already have a written one, and that helps you communicate with your investors, and it also helps you with relations with everybody else that is involved with growing your company. So we develop best practices for your team as well, that answer some of these questions that are up here, but as well as some other best practices that maybe work for your particular industry or your particular team or your particular company in general. And so you'll see that this document is 13 pages as of now. When you are done with it, this document will be anywhere from 20 to 30 pages, because remember, you're writing in stuff in that, and then we're going back and changing it and making sure that we have it all together. So this is going to be your living, breathing guide and document that you can share with whoever you want, change it whenever you want. That is really going to be the principal document for the internal workings of how you're going to raise capital and beyond. It is a wonderful document that you can refer back to, that will be able to guide you through to complete it in its most complete process. And we think that it is going to be the most helpful to you. So that is how we help you prepare to raise, and how you should help yourself prepare to raise, by concentrating on those 5 areas: the foundation, the framework, financials, the forward thinking, and the future. And of course, we can help you here at Darshan Speaks. If you have any questions about any of that, just drop a comment or question down below of the video, and we will get back with you. But we also have our free investor readiness assessment that is in the link as well. So you can always contact us. We'll go over it one-on-one if you want to see how investor ready you are. We'll tell you what your problem areas are and what we can do for you, and pricing and timing and guideline for all of that. But I always say, give us some lead time of 6 months to 12 months before you want to raise your first dollar, so we can get you investor ready, because we want to be methodical, systematic, thorough, and making sure that you're the most attractive that you can be as a company to investors. So that is class number 4 of our masterclass on capital conversations. How do you raise? Again, contact us at Darshan Speaks if we can be of service to you, either from the business coaching or legal consulting side of things. And there's a link for you to schedule some time to chat with me and to go over our investor readiness assessment. So I hope you will invite someone to class number 5 of our masterclass. We have a special guest, Nia Jackson McClure, who's going to talk really about what investors really want from a financial standpoint. What are they looking for in terms of numbers? So I hope you join us back here. It'll be next Wednesday. Let's see, that will be July the 19th at 7 p.m., not 6 p.m., but 7 p.m. So please join us. Please join us at that time, and we look forward to seeing you then.